Hello everybody, I'm the Trybox Gamer, and welcome back to Minecraft. As of today, I'll be playing D&D with some of my friends, and that just made me think of, how I usually play D&D. Usually my characters are the good guy, and honestly, every time I try to make a chaotic character or an evil character, it always defaults to being a good character. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do try to change the characters, because being the good character all the time, it always feels a little boring and always feels like a little routine. That's why whenever I get whenever I start a new game, I do try to mix up my characters a bit so they don't feel like just meshes of someone that I already played. I also try to change up the classes too, because I don't always like playing the same kind of role. However, I've noticed that I believe out of all the classes that I played, I think I might have played Bard more than anything else. But that's on top of my head. I don't recall exactly, I'm that kind of player that if I'm not playing it constantly, it kind of poops out of my head. Like, I kind of forget what we do in this campaign. Can you give me the rundown? And then I'll click eventually, but not all the time. So I'm trying to do a thing. I'm trying to remember. Originally, when we played, we did it through the traditional character sheets. Like, we would write it down and we save it with our DM, because he's very organized when it comes to papers. I'm not. So he keeps the character sheets. Then after a point, we started doing D&D online, where we move over to D&D Beyond, which honestly, it's 50-50. Sometimes it's good, and sometimes it could be like a little annoying, but most of the time it's done well by us. I know a couple of the characters I had to move off because, one, we weren't playing the campaign as of recent, and two, I ran out of character slots, and I really didn't want to pay for the membership per month just to get the unlimited character slots. So I was like, I'm just gonna store these for later. When we need them, I'll bring them back up, because I always had the character sheets. Anything to save a couple bucks, I think it'd be easier if I just say what characters I don't have, because I could think of two, but that is all I could think of at the moment. There was this one campaign, I really wish I remember the title of it, but it wasn't a full-on campaign. I think it was a one-shot for another character, something like that. That's been a while, but they basically needed someone to be a connection for a character in this campaign, and they went from a criminal to a law enforcer. The game, there was a flaming fist, and we had a group discussion on, well, how's this character gonna be, because we already have the shady criminal character. Having too many of that would make it kind of, just a little redundant on characters. You get what I mean? So it was a group discussion. We came up with the idea that this is a flaming fist character who was actually an honest cop, and it worked out because at this point I've already played a few campaigns with these guys. They know how I play. They know that I typically go for the good guy kind of role, so it works for the campaign. It works how I would play it out. Everybody liked the idea, so we kind of just ran with it. Originally, I remember this campaign was going to be just like a one-shot, like we're just going to have one session and that's it. But due to time, that troublesome time, we had to actually redo the session. I think we had in total 3, because the first one, even though we did it, got to a good point, we had to retcon it and start a new one. Why is my game doing that? I do not like that. Okay, that was kind of weird. Not liking that at all, but like I was saying, second session, basically the first session got retcon, which I will say that I didn't care for, on the grounds that the first session I actually played my character so well that I got inspiration for how I performed. See, this was when I was still starting to play. Like, I've already had a couple games in, but I'm still, like, getting used to how to act like my character, how to play like my character. You know, like, you're still starting out, but you're getting familiar with how the game goes. So this was, like, still novice, if I could probably, like, point that out. But there's a part in the first campaign where I had to interrogate a cultist that attacked our group. And when I rolled for intimidation to get him to start talking, the DM, he looked at me and said, okay, what do you say to him? It wasn't going to be like one of those things where, okay, I am going to intimidate him. He asked me, what do I say to him exactly? I cannot tell you what I exactly said because I do not remember what I said. But what I did was, I got up, I used Lorenzo as the NPC. I was like, Lorenzo, can I use you for just 1 second so I could roleplay into this? He said yes. So I stood up, turned him to face me, took a deep breath, and then I started yelling at him. I cannot remember what I said, but I was told that you're interrogating him. Think of an interrogation and run with it. So that was my performance. I did it so well that the DM gave me inspiration for that. He even said, you know, for that, you even pass. You don't even need to roll. You just pass. And that was the first session. I really hate that got retconned because that was the first time I actually performed, I'd say, pretty well. Now, the reason why that the first session got retconned is, one, we kind of took a big break and did not remember what exactly happened, plot-wise. And two, when we got kind of an inkling of what happened, it just did not fit with what the story needed. Like, there were some canon issues with the story, so we had to go back, redo it. I think everyone kind of agreed that, hey, we don't remember what we were doing last time, and we didn't get too far, so let's just, like, go back and redo the last session. And I was like, okay, yeah, and I'm like, oh, I forgot I did a good performance. Oh well, everyone, like, I feel it's for the best for the group, because if I don't remember, they don't remember. If we all don't remember, like, maybe it's a good idea that we do restart. So we restarted. Interesting enough, as we continue with the game, there was a bit of a conflict amongst the players, because the main character, and I say that because that's who the one-shot was for, he was a detective and he worked for both the cops and the criminals. Technically. He had a foot both in the law enforcement, and he also had a foot in the shady underbelly of, you know, the crime world. So, in the party, there was one guy who was a part of the crime world, and then you had my character, who was a very honest cop who would definitely report any suspicious activity to his supervisor. So one of the conflicts was keeping my character in the dark. Now, granted, this is where it comes from player and character knowledge, because I knew that they were criminals, but my character, he didn't. And as much as I want to make peace and not really cause waves, the thing is that you have to understand, when you play a character, you have to go as that character, not as what you would normally do. You could choose what to do, but you have to ask yourself, hey, would my character really do this? If they would, go for it. If they wouldn't, you don't go for it. One of the things my character wouldn't do is turn a blind eye to the legal system. So whenever he noticed something suspicious, he would write it down. And I think, I don't remember how it went down, but I do remember that my character did write several things down on his journey because he did run into several questionable activities while helping out the detective. I can't recall how the session ended. I can't recall how this one-shot ended. I know that we were in a cave where there was the bad guys, and we stopped the bad guys. It's just, I don't remember exactly what happened afterwards. I know there was a cave and then it stopped like their route into the city. But I think one of the endings is that for the criminal character in our party, I think he swiped my notes on all the activities that I'd seen, so I was left with nothing. Which you would think gave me a bad ending because I came up with nothing, but the thing is that my mission in this campaign wasn't to solve these crimes. My mission was to help the detective take care of his mission, and my character went through that easily. He did his part. It's just he kind of hated how this got away. It felt like it kind of hurt his own personal record, but to be fair, considering that in the game, his backstory is that he's usually always on top of things. He got a slap on the wrist is basically it. Like, okay, you did do well, but you didn't do bad. You helped the detective. You did your part, so nothing lost, nothing gained, that kind of thing. But I think, if I recall correctly, because this has been like years ago, I think it was heavily implied that the Flaming Fist that I was working for specifically, I believe that they were corrupted, and this was just getting swept under the rug. They didn't really want to lose my character because I believe more of like a scapegoat kind of thing. Like, okay, if anything happens, we'll just blame the honest guy. If you don't play ball, we'll just, blame him. Something along those lines. That's my impression that I got while playing. At least after the whole cutscene, because this was like the epilogue of the story. But that could have been inaccurate because, like I said, it's been years. I don't remember exactly what the epilogue was, only that the detective character, he completed his mission. He went to continue his story for another campaign. This was just a one-shot. I don't remember who wanted to do it. I think it was either Lorenzo, who wanted to add backstory to a player's character, or maybe it was a player's character, like, to begin with. Maybe he just wanted this little backstory. I honestly don't remember. However, what I do remember is that when we started this new campaign, there was like a long while after this one, but whenever we start a campaign, I don't usually, if I'm not asked to pick my class first, typically I see what the other players are playing as, so I could be like, play with them, like synergize with them, because if we have nothing but tanks, someone's going to need to be the supporter. If we have nothing but support, characters, then we're going to need someone to be the fighter, the tank, the barbarian, something to balance it out, something to be more protective. So this time around, I don't think that was the case. I think I was asked directly, hey, what do you want to play? And for this campaign, I said, you know what, I'll play a Paladin. It's been a while since I played a Paladin. So when I was playing as a Paladin, if I recall correctly, we had to choose a background that would make sense both to our character and kind of to the lore. I think that's always like a requirement, but this time around I was trying to think, okay, why would my guy be a Paladin? Why would my guy be a Paladin? Because sometimes I'm just a little slow on the reason why. It takes me a bit to come up with backstory. Like, yeah, character creation, you could say, I choose to play this guy and this is his background, but then adding lore to it is what takes me a minute. So after a while, I was like, okay, he became a Paladin. He became a city watchman because when he was younger, his hometown got destroyed. That works because there are quite a bit of bandits in this area. There's a lot of groups of bandits in this map, so that works with a story. For this new character, I did base a little bit of Roland onto his characteristics. like for example, they're both honest cops. That was one thing that I kept between these two characters, is that both are honest. I also made sure that both of them don't really lie. And another common thing between them is that they're both decorative officers in their field. They're not just the newbies, they're the guys that they usually get like the mission. So those were the similarities between the two. The thing is, the new character Scartho, while he isn't brutal or vicious, he could be very aggressive, especially against bandits. He wouldn't really spare a bandit, he would more take him out. Rolander would try to spare. Scartho, no. Believe, if I recall correctly, I was allowed to make him a Dragonborn, which had this cool ability where you could use like dragon breath on an enemy. I think I managed to use it a couple times. There was this one encounter that we had where we had to deal with like this water nymph. I think that's what it was called, and you know what? I hated this thing because what it did when we were finally winning in this encounter, because we're surrounded by bandits, this water creature, he got messed up pretty badly. He got messed up very badly. We were so close on finishing him off. You wanna know what he does? He walks towards the water, jumps in, and then disappears. He ran away. Oh, we hated that. Oh, we absolutely hated that because for the entire encounter, we were getting banged up by his goons, his lackeys. We were eventually winning at one point, but we really wanted to nail this guy for making us go through this. And what does he do? He runs away. Not my favorite thing. Not my favorite thing at all. I hated that I do it, but it did give us it did kind of send us on another quest that we gained. So it's whatever. Sometimes it's just I really hated that part. It was a good fight. Don't get me wrong. I like the encounter. It's just I hate that the big bad guy got away. Got away like a scaredy cat too. Ran away with his tail between his legs. It was as much as I hate it, I find it funny that this enemy, for the last, I say, couple rounds, was insulting us, and then we turned the tables on him, and then he dips. It was like, man. Oh well, next time. We'll get him next time. And funny enough, after that, we did get to the city that I wouldn't say is exactly law-abiding. Guess what? There is another character in the group that was also with a criminal background. And again, he said, man, this is the second time that I have to keep Anthony in the dark. And I look at him and I said, look, last time I was being very nice. It was a one-shot. I didn't want to make it like anyways, but this is not a one-shot. This time, I actively have to. Because this is a different character. He's going to be more firm. He's going to be more attentive to his surroundings. You know, he's going to be on the job. But the thing is that I argued that since we are technically after a more bigger threat, a bigger target, he's probably not going to be too attentive to this area. And I only gave that argument is because I was seeing that this was causing the other players some distress. And I was like, I feel like since the person we're going after, he is the bandit leader for a bandit group he really doesn't like, he'd be more focused on them rather than what this city's doing. That was my argument, and for the most part, the DM said, okay, that makes sense, I'll allow it, but you're not going to be blind. And I'm like, obviously, I'm not going to be blind, it's just, I'm going to be more focused on getting to that bandit leader than investigating. If somebody does something in front of me, oh, I'm going to, go into cop mode, it's just, right now I'm more focused on getting that leader, not this city's, lack of crime, which... I'm telling you right now, that city was literally and this other player, he was sweating bullets for the whole thing. He had to promise the leader of the city that, oh, I'm not going to be a problem. I'm not going to be a problem. And again, player me was sitting there smirking. Oh, I kind of want to be a problem. I kind of want to be a problem. This feels like a place where I should be a problem. Granted, that's what player me was thinking and planning, but at the same time, my character wouldn't know this place is a problem. He hasn't really inspected anything. He doesn't really care at the moment. Like, he has no reason to stay in the city, so he's not going to want to stay in the city. I think the DM gave us a reason to stay because the player who desperately didn't want me to find anything out, I think it was his uncle, gave him an inn to take care of for a few business days. That's what I kind of remember. I don't exactly remember the entire story, but that was it. And it was kind of... I think he was offered something that convinced him to keep us in the town for that time being. I don't recall what it was, but it was very important to the character. So, I think after, I'd say maybe 10 minutes of us in-game, out-of-game discussing what we should do, because character-wise, my character just wants to get to the bandit. Player me wants to stay here and cause some stress for the other player, because that sounds kind of funny. After back and forth on what we should do, eventually we all stayed in the city. The other character, he's panicking because now he has to keep me under watch and key. Like, he can't have me figuring anything out, because if I figure anything out and start getting the guards here, the head of the city's going to go for him. It was, I say, probably not even a day later that something goes wrong. Well, I guess technically for him, but the money that's in the inn disappeared. And we don't know who did it. Cue me being a cop and getting into this case. So we're investigating. You have this other player trying to keep me from investigating too much. It's like keeping me in the dark while also trying to find a crime in a crime-ridden city. Actually, it's not really much of a city. It was more of a village, a town. So city's too strong of a word. So think of like, if you saw this village in Minecraft, it'd be like that size. Estimate, that size. Maybe a little bigger. But anyway, we're looking for this guy who robbed the place. We finally find that it was the blacksmith. I think it was a blacksmith, and he had his accomplice being his assistant. Now, both of them were in two different areas. I think it was my character and the fighter. We go after the blacksmith himself, and then it was all the magic casters that went after his assistant. In retrospect, that wasn't the brightest of the moves, because, one, both of these characters weren't in the same area. They were a good distance from each other, so... say party A being me and the fighter. If we got done being the blacksmith, and party B needs help, we're not going to know that. We're not going to know that, because we wouldn't know, like, oh, hey, do they need help? Are they good? Character-wise, we wouldn't know. Player-wise, we would, but we can't act on that because that's meta-knowledge. And another thing is that, all the magic casters went after one dude. If you know D&D, you know that magic casters don't typically have high AC. That'd be going to the tankier classes like, you know, Paladin, Barbarian, Fighter, that kind of thing. I think maybe one of them was a monk. Maybe. I don't recall exactly who's who. I do know that there was a druid. Maybe a monk. Definitely a fighter. A wizard. And then I was a paladin. So, we go to the blacksmith's place. We rough him up. We straight up rough him up. Like, it was a fight, but me and the fighter, we just straight up roughed him up. We ruined his day. We knocked him out, locked him up, got the evidence to say that, okay, yeah, he's the one that's been stealing. I think after a few minutes of us, like, just like, because when the group separates, the DM, he would switch the scenes between the players, and when we're done with a scene, he would switch to the other group. I think after maybe a group switch, both me and the fire was like, you know what, we should probably find our friends. Where do they go? And we're like, because we weren't told where they went off to. We don't know where the blacksmith assistant ran off, like, would be, so we're like, okay, how about we try to find them? I think the rule was either perception or... I think it might have been perception or something like that. Something along the lines. We had to roll to find them. I think I sucked with the roll because maybe it was perception. Or maybe it was just bad roll. I honestly don't remember what it was. The thing is that my wisdom... not too good. The fighter, on the other hand, had a okay, I have a -1 in my wisdom. The fighter, I think she might have had either it was a flat roll or it was a +1 in her wisdom, but regardless of how high her wisdom is, definitely better than a -1. So she was the one that rolled for perception. She rolled high enough where she could find, like, I think the description was she could hear muffled fighting in the distance, and we follow that to find our friends basically getting into a fight with the blacksmith's assistant. If I recall correctly, they weren't having that much of an issue except for the wizard, who was very much getting hurt, I believe. So we stepped in. Now it's the 5-on-1. The 3-on-1 was good odds, but mind you, like I said, it was all the wizards, all the... Yeah, I think maybe, like I said, maybe the guy was a monk, so they kind of had an edge, but at the same time, like, the other dudes, like, they had the disadvantage with their spells, because if it was a ranged spell, they were kind of in a tight space, so they couldn't really cast it properly. Now, when we entered, we didn't have that problem, because our strategy was just to go up to the guy and hit him. That was legitimately our strategy. Go up to him, hit him, and keep hitting him until he gets knocked out. And would you believe it if it worked? Because this guy, I think he had, not advantage, but he was good at wisdom saves. That was the thing, like, he was good at wisdom saves. He was doing pretty well at all the saves that the spells that the magic people just kept throwing at him. So, yeah, they weren't having too much fun with that. They hated that he kept on, you know, getting half damage for their spells or just not getting hit out. Like, really hated that. We came in, knocked them out. I don't recall what happened after that, because after that session, that was the last session that we had for that campaign. But it was pretty fun. I think with that one, we started at level 1, maybe, and currently we are level 3. So, yeah. I even have my stats right here. I'm looking at them right now. My strength is 17. My dex is 11. Constitution is 14. Intelligence is 1, because yeah, I figure, you know, investigation's gonna need that. You're gonna need some smarts. Wisdom is an 8. Gotta take the L somewhere, and, well, that's where I took my L for. And then Charisma is 14. I don't think this is a standard array. I think this might be either... I don't want to say it was a point-buy system. Maybe it was a random... like a random roll system. Maybe. I honestly don't remember how the stats were made. Actually, I could check it up right now. I'll give it a little look. Hopefully it'll pop up. Oh, but we are at the end of the video. Well, with that being said, thank you for listening to me ramble. I'll see you next time. Take care. Please like and subscribe. And have a great day.